The movie begins in Tokyo. CIA assassin Avery Graves confirms her target before rappelling down from a skyscraper. She lands and swiftly takes out a man standing nearby. Inside the building, a Yakuza boss, Kenji, talks about his shipment until Avery's Glock rests on his head. She orders him to open his safe, but as soon as he does, a guard enters the room, distracting Avery and allowing Kenji to escape with a drive. Avery kills her attacker and goes after the injured Kenji, taking out and battling more guards along the way. She gets cornered by a few guards, but some skillful moves allow her to get the upper hand. Kenji ambushes her, and the two get into a fight, but Avery eventually overpowers him and drowns him in his own pool. She then grabs the drive and escapes from the building. Avery returns to Croatia where she lives with her husband, David. David is preparing dinner as the couple is celebrating their 3rd-year anniversary. They exchange gifts, and Avery is pleased to see he got her the jacket she always wanted. Finally, David reveals that he would want them to adopt puppies, but Avery doesn't think she is ready for pets. Instead of eating in, Avery suggests they head out to dinner. The two walk to dinner. Along the way, David suggests that Avery join him on a business trip overseas, and she is excited to join him as it's been a while. The next morning, Avery is getting ready to head out to work. David wants her to stay in and spend the day in bed, but Avery has to head out, and the two kiss. Avery heads to work. She speaks with her boss and friend, Jarvis, and she gives him a watch as a gift from her latest mission. The two head into a private meeting to discuss the contents of Kenji's drive. It contained info about businesses used as fronts to ship weapons. There is also info that a top assassin codenamed Kali botched the job for the Russian mafia while she was in Tokyo and also took out 2 undercover agents, and they plan to investigate further and identify him. Later, Avery returns home, trying to avoid a conversation with the chatty neighbors. She heads inside, calling for David, but is shocked to see the house trashed and David's cracked glasses on the ground. She is looking around frantically when a phone begins to ring on the table. On the line is a disguised voice that knows her. It gives her a detainee number for a prisoner at a CIA black site who has a file named Canary Black hidden in a fake tooth. The man wants Avery to steal the file or she will never see David again. Avery demands proof of life and hears David screaming. The voice instructs her to answer a payphone in her alley at midnight with a Canary Black file. If she fails to get the file or gets her agency involved, the voice promises to kill David. Avery threatens to kill the man if he hurts David, but the man reminds her of the plan before hanging up. Avery instantly calls a known hacker named Serena, asking for a favor as what she wants needs to be off the books. Serena is hesitant, but Avery reminds her she can always tell the Russians about her recent hack into their system. Serena complies, and Avery wants the location of the last call to her cell phone. Meanwhile, Avery grabs her gun and gets dressed. Serena explains that the cell phone is a burner, but she will track down the location and text Avery. Avery returns to the office where she finds that the CIA detainee is named Laszlo Stoica, but all his details are restricted. She sends what she can to herself. She gets the location from Serena and heads there immediately. With her gun in hand, Avery goes searching. She then hears the cell phone ringing nearby, but the apartment seems abandoned. Beside the ringing cell phone, she finds David's wedding band. On the line is the same distorted voice who has anticipated her trying to track him down and reveals that she has just stepped on a pressure-sensitive bomb. The man on the line is actually watching her and begins to read out her agency file, revealing he knows everything about her. If she can get out of this situation, the deal between them will still stand. Avery wastes no time and pries open the floorboard next to her foot. Using her cell phone, she identifies the bomb as a bouncing Betty. She breaks the leg of the table, triggers the bomb, and bats it out the window, taking out the side of the building. Avery is unarmed, flashes a middle finger at the camera, and escapes to her car. With a new determination, she speeds away. She heads to the CIA black site where Stoica is being held and asks to speak with the agent in charge of Stoica's detention, Agent Maxfield. He is reluctant, but Avery explains that Stoica has intel related to a case she is working on. She learns that Stoica is detained for stealing top-secret information. Avery gains access to Stoica's room. She reveals she knows about his connections with Kali and the Canary Black file he stole and offers to help him if he gives her information. Stoica refuses to talk, so Avery attacks him and yanks out the tooth, but it's empty. She then restrains Agent Maxfield and escapes the room. He sees the empty tooth and thinks Avery has stolen the file and orders his agents to detain her, but Avery defeats a few agents before escaping the building. Soon after, all CIA headquarters are alerted to Avery's apparent betrayal. Deputy Director Nathan Evans demands answers from Jarvis and Maxfield. Jarvis reveals that an orphaned Avery was trained as a covert assassin since the age of 18 and he doubts she is a traitor, but Evans wants her hunted down and neutralized. He adds that the Canary Black File is a list of blackmail information collected on many government officials, from presidents to even Jarvis, and a secret affair he had a few years ago. Evans cannot allow their enemies to get this information and gives Jarvis complete access to all resources to neutralize her. Jarvis and Maxfield are later looking over video footage of Avery's incident. Maxfield thinks Avery was playing Jarvis all along. They want to track her down. Not knowing the situation, they plan to bring David in and question him. They pull David's records and see where his card was used to withdraw money and book a flight for Rome along with a Miss Olga Murov, which turns out to be one of Avery's aliases. Just then, Jarvis gets a call from his home phone, but it's actually Avery, who explains that David is being held ransom for the Canary Black File, but she doesn't have it. She urges him to believe that she is not a traitor and to go to her house to see the mess. Jarvis pretends to talk to his wife to keep their cover. Jarvis then leads a team of CIA agents to Avery's home, but instead of a mess, the home is perfectly organized. Maxfield doesn't believe Avery's ransom story and begins searching for the file. Avery heads over to a club where she catches the attention of the owner, Henrik. Henrik is not happy to see her there, but Avery needs his help. She explains the situation and wants a list of items as well as all foreign agents, assassins, and intel brokers in the city, promising to pay for his services. She then heads over to one of her safe houses and goes inside the apartment, but she is attacked by a man. After a short battle, Avery manages to kill her attacker. She grabs a suitcase from the kitchen, but she hears her attacker's cell phone ringing. It is the distorted voice, who reveals the man was his, and that he cleared out her rainy day fund as payback for playing him. Avery is shocked to see her suitcase empty. She tells the man that Stoika's tooth was empty, but she soon gets a video call of David being tortured. The man also thinks Avery has the file, which is why the CIA is after her, and gives her 4 hours to get him the file or David dies. Avery then reaches out to Jarvis wanting to meet. She goes to meet with Jarvis inside his car that night, trying to convince him that she is innocent. Jarvis explains what the Canary Black File is and that even he is on the list, and she will not get the chance to exchange it. Just then, the car is surrounded by CIA agents and Avery realizes that Jarvis has set her up before she is arrested and taken by Maxfield and his team. They move out with Avery in a convoy, but soon 2 other cars begin chasing. Men then plant bombs on the CIA cars, remotely detonating them. The surviving agents engage the masked men in a driving gun battle. Seeing her chance, Avery attacks the agents, causing everyone to crash, including Jarvis. Avery frees herself before grabbing a rifle and finishing off her attackers. One man survives and chases after her, but Avery ambushes him. The man attacks her with a knife, but Avery expertly dodges his attacks before killing him with his own knife. Her attacker turns out to be her neighbor Rurik, but he dies before she can get answers. Jarvis goes back to Maxfield, trying to get him to see that Avery may be compromised, but he is insistent that Avery is a traitor, threatening to have Jarvis relieved. They then get a photo of Avery's neighbor and Jarvis recognizes him. We then meet the man behind the voice, Konrad Brasnov, reminding Rurik's wife that soldiers are meant to die. He then kills another man for failure to capture Avery. Avery returns to meet with Henrik. She only has a few thousand for him and offers to give him intel as compensation. She tells him about Kenji's connection inside the UN Security Council and how he collects his cut. Henrik then tells her that the Kruger brothers, including Kali, are working in the city and Avery suspects he is behind David's kidnapping. She also finds out that Rurik is a private contractor that even the CIA doesn't know about. Henrik then hands over the items Avery asked for but warns her not to contact him again. Evans arrives at the NES headquarters to meet with its director, who turns out to be Konrad Brasnov. He ironically scolds Evans for the mess he is causing in the city. Evans then offers a partnership to capture Avery, and Conrad accepts but wants to be the first to interrogate her. Avery gets herself a hotel room under an alias. She then sneaks from the window that night and crawls on a ledge outside to another hotel room, which happens to be where Evans is staying. She then gets a picture of David and a message telling her to show up with the file at midnight. Evans returns to his room, but he is attacked by Avery, who puts a mute mask over his face and straps him to a chair. He explains that Stoica did not have the file and that her husband was kidnapped, but Evans warns she will die if she hands over the file. Avery reveals that she suspects Evans himself has the file and demands the password to his laptop. Evans refuses to hand it over, so Avery wants to find out how much pain he can endure. She breaks his fingers and he instantly talks, but the password is not accepted, and he has another finger broken. Evans is determined, so Avery straps a remote detonated bomb around his neck, threatening to end his life. Evans gives up the password, but his account can only be accessed from a CIA secure server. Avery then calls Serena, asking to track down the closest server. Avery reaches out to Jarvis once more, asking for blueprints for PLK Technologies, which has a contract with the DoD and thus has a secure server. Jarvis knows the risk, as it could lead right back to him, but we'll see what he can do. Avery meets with Serena on top of a roof next to PLK Technologies with plans to use a drone to get Avery into the building. Jarvis comes through with the blueprints, so Avery hangs onto the drone as it flies her towards the building. She gets off on the roof and tells Serena to return for her in 10 minutes. Avery makes her way through the building and hacks into the server room. There, she uses Evans' passkey to log into his account and copy the Canary Black files. Meanwhile, Evans awakens in his room but is unable to call for help. After a while, his agents find him restrained, and he alerts them to Avery's actions. The agents reach out to PLK Security, who lock down the building. Avery has successfully copied the files and calls for Serena to come get her. Security guards try to corner Avery, but she manages to take out the guards before jumping from the building onto the drone. The guards open fire, causing the drone to lose control, and Avery is dropped onto the street. She tells Serena to meet her at a location before stealing a car from a concerned driver. An angry Evans calls Conrad, and they begin to mobilize their agents. Serena meets up with Avery and they access the Canary Black files, only to find that it's actually a collection of individual doomsday viruses, each targeting a specific country. With this virus, an entire country's economy could be crippled. Avery cannot allow this to get into anyone's hands and has Serena encrypt the file. She then takes Serena's cell phone and texts Jarvis to track her. It is almost midnight, so Avery takes off towards the payphone she was instructed to answer. She hits top speed but gets blindsided by a truck. She then races towards the now ringing payphone but doesn't answer it in time. As she stands there, a man tases her and injects her. Conrad has gotten his hands on the Canary Black file and enacts his plan. He then puts on a mask and starts a live feed. At the Global Unification Summit in New York, Conrad hacks the feed. He explains he has the Canary Black file and threatens to unleash it unless each country pays a ransom of 1% GDP. To demonstrate the power he now has, Conrad launches the virus against Singapore, and all the lights go out in the country. Conrad then tells his men to prepare to steal $1 trillion. Evans calls Maxfield into a private meeting where he reveals that the CIA created the Canary Black virus as a weapon against their enemies, and it is so secretive that not even the president knows of it. They also created a US-specific virus in case of a civil war or invasion and must track down whoever the hacker is. Meanwhile, Jarvis is tracking Avery's cell phone and locates a hideout. He pretends to be drunk and stumbles inside, swiftly taking out the men outside. He continues into the base but is soon held at gunpoint and brought before Conrad. Jarvis is shocked to see him and realizes what is happening. He demands to know where Avery is, warning Conrad that the CIA will find him, but Conrad suddenly shoots Jarvis dead. He then wakes Avery up with a slap, mocking her for being weak and for making him a wealthy man. Avery demands to see David, and Conrad complies. A bound and beaten David is dragged in by Rurick's wife and shot in the side. Meanwhile, all the countries begin to panic, and one by one, begin to pay their ransoms. Conrad gets a call from his own president, advising him to pay the ransom as well. David attacks Rurick's wife, and Avery is then shocked to see David battle and beat her, killing her brutally. He then frees Avery, who attacks him, demanding to know who he really is. David reveals he is the one who told Conrad about Canary Black, and the kidnapping was planned between them to have Avery retrieve the file. He is actually Kali, and after his botched job, his identity was leaked to Conrad and gave up info about the virus to save his life. When Conrad couldn't find it, he threatened to kill Avery, so he suggested the plan to use her instead. Avery thinks everything between them was a lie, but David tells her their marriage was real to him, and he was trying to protect them. Avery then tells him to cut Conrad's internet, and she will find and stop him. All the countries have now paid or are planning to pay as their time is almost up. Everyone though points their finger at the USA for creating the file. Evans is losing it and demands that the team find Avery and Jarvis. They have tracked Jarvis's last known location, and Evans demands a tactical team to the location. Avery stumbles upon Jarvis's body and cries for him. Conrad has received most payments, but a few countries, including the USA, have not paid, and he prepares their viruses. Just then, David gets to a breaker and sends the entire base into darkness. Avery uses the darkness to get closer to Conrad and his men. He is about to lock the room down when Avery opens fire on him. During the gunfight, Conrad orders his hacker to launch the viruses while he escapes the room. Avery takes out an attacker and goes after him, and the two exchange gunfire, but he escapes. Avery gives chase. Conrad and his hacker are making good progress, but Avery catches up to them. There is another shootout between them, but Avery keeps pushing and eventually hits the hacker, dropping him. Realizing he is cornered, Conrad offers Avery billions, but she keeps shooting at him. She eventually hits his shoulder, then attacks him. The two battle, with Conrad grabbing a knife, but Avery is too fast for him. Conrad eventually causes them both to fall over a balcony. Meanwhile, the injured hacker manages to activate the viruses. Conrad tries ending Avery with a knife, but she holds him off and kills him with a blade. She then barely manages to stop the virus from becoming active. David then comes to her, again apologizing for everything and offering to fix things. Avery is not willing to accept his lies and returns his wedding band. The CIA agents burst into the room, and David tells her he loves her before jumping out the window. Avery is then arrested. She is interrogated by Evans, who tells her that she broke numerous laws and had her mentor and husband killed. He plans to repay her for his finger, but Avery headbutts him. Just then, a woman named Elizabeth Mills enters, and Evans gets a call from the president himself. Elizabeth represents a newly formed secret agency named MC6 that is tasked with handling threats of the highest scale and offers Avery a job instead of rotting in prison. Avery accepts the offer. She is outside walking when she sees David's wedding band on a guardrail, indicating that he is still alive.